Welcome back. This one might be a bit of a trigger warning for some because it speaks to one of the biggest, I think, social development issues, maybe challenges we face in this country right now. But the answers are there. We've just got to reach out and grab them. And I think in many places worldwide, millions face threats to their health. That's kind of the human condition right now. Over half of the global population, in fact, lacked proper access to healthcare in 2021. Over half. Something is broken. Today we are speaking with Professor Pamela Naidu, CEO of the Heart and Stroke Foundation here in South Africa, about ensuring fair access to health resources for South Africans. Let's just make that the baseline. Prof, we love you. We love you for what you represent, your organization, and just the person that you are. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
When it comes to the Heart and Stroke Foundation of South Africa, I think a lot of people would like to know what exactly is it that you do? Where is that intervention coming from and the knowledge that you spread through your organization?
Yes, so the key pillars of what we do are really around health literacy and health education, but we try to achieve population level effect. So, you know, it's more of a public health framework that we use so that we could reach more people than fewer people. But I'll pick on two really important things we do. One is the health promotion program. And what we do here is we go into communities of need and we do health risk assessments. Now, you know, and so that sort of integrate the education into that. Because most people don't even know they sit with this really high blood pressure that could lead them to having a heart attack or a stroke or other circulatory conditions. So we're able to then detect and diagnose and then refer on to the appropriate medical care. So that's one of the other things we do. And then we're very involved in the nutrition space. Because I think this is coming up a bit later. Because as the science evolves, you're finding that gut health is linked to many things, to overall health. So, you know, key to good health is good nutrition. But again, you need to take a deep dive because, you know, what is it about macronutrients and micronutrients? And it's not just about the salt, sugar, and the fats.
For sure. Can I spice this up just a little bit? Yeah. So you mentioned the salt and the sugar, so let's add a few more ingredients there. Is this not speaking to a shift? You talk about a shift in science, a shift in medical mindsets, that we've got to strengthen the body to do a lot of the healing itself. And that's where the nutrition plays a vital role. But there's an overlap when we speak about welfare and that social impact. It's a human right to be able to access nutrition. So now we're starting to connect these dots beautifully to understand that the weight of the expense later on, if we don't keep a population healthy, can start as early as the wrong kind of nutrition for a child. Yeah. How is the current situation impacting that space specifically?
Yes, no, it's a brilliant question. I think the problem is that because, you know, nutrition is not, to have good nutrition, it's not super expensive. But it's almost very sort of manipulated into being very expensive. And the right is actually to break that barrier.
For sure. Facilitate.
You know, and to have access to, yes. Because it is about access to healthcare, but it's also about infrastructure and structural inequalities.
For sure.
You know, so, I mean, your basic vegetables and fruit should never cost you an arm and a leg. It shouldn't be like that. You know, we shouldn't be paying export prices, let's put it that way.
Yes.
So I think one of the things we do very strongly at the organization is we do a lot of lobbying work and advocacy work and trying to influence policy. But not just health policy, for health equality.
Consumer policy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, taxation and fiscal policies, as we call them, yeah.
Have you noticed a relationship between food insecurity and health and outcomes? Is there a direct relationship?
Absolutely. So the sad fact is that we mustn't live in a bubble in South Africa.
For sure.
Just look around the world and look at the conflict, the wars, you know, just the strife that people are feeling everywhere, you know.
Globally,
it includes rich countries too. You know, low and middle income countries. And, you know, people don't really get this, but if you look at, say, for example, the quality of your soil, I mean, we are dependent largely on a country that's currently in war to provide us the fertilizer for that, for the crops, you know. So food insecurity comes from obviously a lack of resources. And so you see crime rates increasing and so on, besides, of course, the health effect, which is going to be, particularly with young children, you're going to find that they're so undernourished that, you know, they're not going to learn well. So it has this life course effect, which is a very difficult challenge, but we have to constantly address the issue.
The crazy thing is, in this is the fire of what South Africa presents, we are seeing, if you can just give the right nutrition at that critical gateway, that early childhood development phase, we can conquer anything in this country. We've proven that. We've got that ability, that resilience. We just need a little bit of food in our bellies to start that journey.
Absolutely.
Prof, please stick around. We're going to continue this conversation. We are talking about access to health and where that baseline is sitting in the world, and especially here in South Africa.
It's my feel-good breakfast show.
Welcome back to your Feel Good Breakfast Show. And yes, you are just in time because we're building on our previous discussions on advocating for basic health rights with Professor Pamela Naidoo, the CEO of Heart and Stroke Foundation of South Africa, with a focus on My Health, My Right being the World Health Day theme. Now, Prof, can we recap on I suppose, some of the rights patients or individuals have when it comes to access to their own healthcare? I think a lot of us don't know what we are entitled to.
Yes, absolutely. So essentially, in the public health system, you should not be refused care. So, for example, let's take a concrete example. You know, this also speaks to what is your responsibility. So you need to be empowered. You need to know, say, for example, your family history. If you know you're vulnerable to cardiovascular disease or hypertension or raised cholesterol or any one of those conditions, you should be able to access care where you get the basic care. And that is sort of knowing your numbers, having a screen check, because that is the only way to actually know your absolute risk. And, you know, that kind of access is very critical. But that is more, I would say, for young and older adults. But if we just take a step back, I think the basic fundamental thing is to have children, and particularly mothers and pregnant women, having access to care, because that is really the formation of health, right? And fortunately, our former late great President Nelson Mandela gave that right to, you know, in the public sector.
Yeah.
But it's very common to hear that when people are desperate and they go into a private institution, even if it's a very young person or a baby, they will get refused care, even though it might be the closer facility.
Yeah.
So I think the equity in health comes from re-engineering is the word I'd like to use, the whole system. So somebody pays for it, you know, wherever you access the care, but it is a right to health.
It definitely is a right that every person needs to have access to. Now, when it comes to, you know, these systems that needs to change, obviously we need to address government, we need to address ministers, we need to address all these big corporations. What can we as the everyday South Africans do to get them to take notice, to be able to support the foundation that you guys lobby for all these incredible things?
Yes, no, absolutely. I think two takeaways from me. One is to become a bigger advocate. You know, if you look around the world, I mean, if you take a page out of HIV's book, the reason people in South Africa got treatment to access to ARVs is because of the lobby groups. Okay. So we need to do the same for all conditions. Because, for example, a cardiovascular condition, it's lifelong if you don't have the right access to care. So that is the one thing. But a very critical thing, I believe, is you don't have to be a rocket scientist, but self-management is very important. So that self-awareness of, you know, what is your health status, be open and transparent about it with the people you trust, because a lot of this comes from stigma as well. That, you know, we need to do away with the stigma of being hypertensive or having diabetes. But, you know, you could live such a productive life if you get the correct treatment and care.
No, you definitely can. You definitely can. Now, with the World Health Day being the theme, My Health, my right. What parting advice do you have for us today, Prof? Because I think a lot of people, we sometimes feel like we don't have the right to say something or to advocate for ourselves, but we need to hear it from someone to be like, actually, I'm allowed to stand up for myself in this aspect.
Absolutely, for yourself and for communities. So I think that, if we just look at the inception of My Health, My Right, so human rights and health rights, it stems from post-World War II. And that we should have come a long way. And if we are using the same narrative, something is inherently wrong. And so that's why I believe that we should all be much stronger and have a joint voice in trying to advocate for not only your own rights, your communities, your families, but also the country and the world at large. Because I think if we can do away with divisions and unnecessary misconceptions about each other, I do think that mentally we'll also be stronger.
Yeah, no, we will. We definitely will. Well, Professor, thank you for joining us today. Thank you for parting your knowledge with us. And remember to prioritize your health. Equitable access to healthcare for everyone. That is the goal. But for more information, you can visit www.heartfoundation.co.za.